Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first Vancouver area Farm to School network meeting. My name is Samantha Gambling, and I'm the community animator for the Vancouver area Farm to School regional hub. And for the next hour, it's 3:45 on October the 19th. For the next hour, we're really happy to have with us a few really inspiring farm to school actors in the Vancouver area. So first up, I'll introduce Rosalind Sadowski of Fresh Roots Urban Farming Society and Lee Green, Culinary Arts and ACID instructor at David Thompson Secondary School in Vancouver. They're going to be talking about some really cool farm to school activities and programs currently taking place at David Thompson. Then we will have with us Nikoo Boroumand of SPEC, the Society Promoting Environmental Conservation, and Nikoo is going to be sharing with us some really valuable information on how to integrate farm to school into our curriculum. So how to get farm to school actually into our schools. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Roz.
All right. So my name is Rosalind, and I work with Fresh Roots as their youth programs coordinator. And in that work, I wear a number of hats and work with a number of different youth programs. And part of that involves our connection with Farm to School and a lot of the work that we've done through the David Thompson Carrot Club, which is how Lee Green has been involved in what we do. She's currently actually with the Carrot Club, making some veggie wraps after school. So she'll be ducking in near the end to provide some of her insight and perspectives on the work she's been doing with the Carrot Club and farming initiatives here at DT over the past years. But to give a brief introduction to what Fresh Roots is, we're an organization that runs educational farms on school grounds here in Vancouver at David Thompson and Van Tech Secondary. And our mission is to grow good food for all. And we do that through cultivating engaging gardens. And we also work to foster ecological stewardship, healthy eating, and youth empowerment through those farms. So why does this not want to move forward? There we are. This is a little bit of the farm at David Thompson. And these are basically living classrooms that a variety of students and community members engage with throughout the year. And this part of things, I know everybody on this platform already has an idea about, but in our particular context in Vancouver, we're looking at a real disconnect in terms of our students and how they're accessing or engaging with food. So that we recognize that there is real hunger in the Vancouver school system. The approximately 2,000 students are going hungry every day in Vancouver schools, and that at Van Tech, about a quarter of students may be food insecure in some ways, and that's something I think Kathy could speak more to as well in terms of some of their work with coastal health. Meanwhile, other statistics show that about half of healthy weight females are trying to lose weight, and so there's this, some people are going hungry while others feel like they're eating too much, and there's just a lot of negative engagement with food in our school systems, not to mention the problems that we have with an aging farm population. So we're looking for new ways to engage young people in farming and food production at our schools. And particularly in Vancouver, although I know this is something that comes up across the province, that the study by the Vancouver Foundation showing that a third of Vancouverites are lonelier than they want to be, and 4/5 of them do not have regular conversations with their neighbors. So we're also seeing huge disconnect from one another, not only from our food and where it comes from, but from the people around us. And that creates a space where the kind of farming work that we've been doing in the city can actually serve to foster that connection, both with our food and with others in our community, and especially between students in their school system. So we started out in 2009, growing in backyards and feeding with 8 backyards, about 35 families. And that was one of those schools, one of those backyard farms, was adjacent to Queen Alexandra School, an elementary school, and they noticed what we were doing and said, hey, what if you were to come and do that at our site? As they had a school garden that sometimes teachers were looking after, sometimes parents were looking after, but a lot of the time nobody was really looking after. And by bringing in fresh roots, and at that point our ragtag team of volunteers, all of a sudden there was an actual support system to be maintaining the garden, to be ensuring that there was food planted throughout the year, that it was a living space, and that teachers actually felt comfortable and excited to be engaging with, because they recognized that there was a resource there for them to talk to and learn with. And when we saw boys at the school, well, kids in general at the school, arm wrestling for the last piece of broccoli on the farm, we knew that something was going right, and this was feeding something previously unmet need in the school. So we started dreaming bigger, and we saw that there was a lot of underutilized land at our schools in the city, and several years of wrangling with all kinds of bureaucracy and finding partners and raising money and whatnot. In 2013, we built this 2 first-of-their-kind educational farms at David Thompson and Van Tech, both of which are quarter-acre sites. And so with hundreds of volunteers, we transformed what was just a lawn space and 4 days of effort at both schools into what became an actual working and living farm. It seems so easy when you just click through slides. Anyway, and the big idea at the beginning of that work was to prove that we could grow a lot of good food on school grounds. And that is still a big part of our focus. We grow approximately $45,000 worth of produce every year that is brought into school cafeterias, that's shared with our neighbors and community members through our salad box program. We share it with different food security programs, such as the Cedar Cottage Mobile Food Network, and as well as local restaurants and grocers. And so we did see that we could grow a lot of food on those sites. But where we really started to see the impact of these farms was in their ability to inspire a different kind of learning at school. So we host a number of different experiential learning programs through the farm. We use the garden to teach BC core curriculum, and we have a variety of teachers coming outside, and we support them in various ways through Pro-Ds or one-on-one mentoring when that's desired. And so we've had home ec teachers that are out in the garden. We have science teachers, math, drama, literature, photography, marketing, all kinds of different teachers that are using the farm as a foundation for a more hands-on kind of learning with their students. We also now offer field classes and field trips. So the field classes, we have 2 regularly scheduled days for Van Tech and David Thompson teachers that if they want to bring their class outside, we host them and can tie the farm into whatever curriculum they're working on at that point. We host field trip groups from across the city, as well as various workshops for different community groups that might be interested in learning, as well as the after-school garden clubs, including the Carrot Club at DT. And that's where students that might not be able to get involved in the farm during their regular classroom hours or want to build on what they're learning with their regular classroom hours on the farm can get involved and have a fun and hands-on way of connecting with one another and learning new food literacy pieces. We also, a big part of what we do is through the SOIL program, which stands for Sustainable Opportunities for Youth Leadership. And although, because it's a bit of a mouthful, we stick to SOIL mostly. And basically, the soil program started out as an initiative run through UBC, where high school students received mentorship and leadership training and looked after school gardens in the summer months when often there weren't the other support systems around to be looking after those spaces. So it was kind of filling in a key piece in our school food systems. And over time, we started to recognize that there were ways to integrate that program with what we were doing at Fresh Roots in terms of providing life skills and employability training to young people at school. Because a lot of what we're recognizing is that there's this disconnect between what students are learning in the classroom and then when they get out of school and not feeling like they're equipped to enter the workforce or understand how they can find their path in post-secondary or whatever else it might be, even just to look after themselves in basic ways that are not necessarily being taught in the existing way of learning. So basically, we hired this summer for the first time 21 students to work with us on the farms 4 days a week, 7 hours a day. And I say hire because they receive a stipend of $600 for their participation in the program. And part of what they're doing is growing with us on the farms. They're doing farm work and understanding what it means to be a farmer in a lot of ways, as well as to work hard and contribute to their community in that sense. So they would spend a number of the program hours actually weeding and harvesting and planting and doing a variety of farm tasks. They would also cook with volunteer chefs to produce a community eats meal for 50 people twice a week. So they would be feeding themselves as well as any guests that come from the community. And this is a huge part for rounding out that foundational skills for healthy eating and that food literacy component. And they would produce some astonishing meals as part of that, as you can see in this slide. And it's really exciting to be able to eat together what we're growing, obviously. We also have a number of leadership curriculum components, and we work with youth from a variety of backgrounds. We particularly make an effort to involve struggling youth, those that might be encountering difficulties at school, at home, socially, whatever else it might be. And we work with youth to empower them to understand that we all have a role in leadership, that there are many faces and styles of leadership, and that they all have a way of contributing on the farm and in the work that we do. And we see that it's a hugely beneficial experience for growing their personal capacity and self-confidence, connection with others, building relationships at that critical stage and fostering that sense of belonging in the teen years. And that they also have a chance to build on those skills and actually lead workshops for other younger students in the community. They also sell the produce. So they're able to, they come to the farmers market every week with us and share their efforts with the community, as well as build those critical outreach, communication, and marketing skills. And they loved that experience. That was a big highlight for a lot of them, seeing the tangible impact of their work. And then they also preserve the harvest. And this is part of what we receive funding from the Farm to School Network, was to actually preserve and produce different canned goods and healthy snacks using local products. And through this process, the students start to see their role in a robust local food economy as they develop their own social enterprise. So they produce 170 jars of blueberry jam and 110 jars of salsa, 100 jars of tomato sauce, and then they sell these as fundraisers for future soil students to be participating in the program. And this again gives a really valuable foundation in understanding business development and finding a way to extend the life of your farm and your harvest, and share skills in the community in a new way. And they often spoke to the value of its experience, which is pretty incredible considering that in the summertime, they were canning for 7 hours straight in 35-degree weather in a room that windows didn't open. So the fact that they still took it away as a huge learning experience, I think speaks to the impact of that kind of food preservation and business side of things. And so that's an example of some of what they actually produce and sell afterwards. And then we continue this work through after-school garden clubs during the school year. And so we engage at DT with the Carrot Club, which typically has about 15 to 25 students coming to hang out every week after school. And we sometimes we just cook meals together or make snacks to build some of those food production pieces in. Lee, yeah, we're actually just talking about the Carrot Club. Do you have 2 seconds to come say hi and talk about that?
I just want to pipe in, Roz, that it's time to switch over really shortly. So if you want to just wrap things up in the next couple minutes and maybe answer a question or two, that would be awesome.
Great. Do you want to just quick, say something about the Carrot Club, or just even say hi to folks?
Okay.
You can just literally say hi there.
Hi, it's Lee Green, chef instructor at David Thompson and for the Carrot Club.
And I was just talking a little bit about what we do in terms of food production. Do you want to share some of the things that we cooked with the Carrot Club last year?
Sure. Last year we did wraps, veggie wraps. We did dehydrating with fruit and vegetables. We've done different canning projects, freezer jam and cranberry chutney. We did pizzas. What else did we do?
Kimchi.
Oh yes, kimchi.
Potato chocolate truffles. Yes, all kinds of exciting things.
Right.
I'll let you get back to them, but I'll let you know if there's any specific questions. And that, so like Lee was saying, part of what we're understanding is ways to feed students at school, to engage them after school at the garden and the kitchen process. And part of that is, as Lee mentioned, doing fruit preserves, fruit leathers, veggie chips as something that they can sell back into the school and engage other students with what they're doing. That's an example of the cranberry chutney that they made together. And that's basically the end of the presentation. We like to end with this slide because we basically like to think that by having some of these school farms, we're hopefully helping to create more of this in the world. And I'd be happy to answer any quick questions. I know we're a little behind, and I'm sorry that was a bit of a whirlwind tour through everything that we're doing here. But certainly, I'm available to answer more questions online or over the phone after this as well. And that's all.
That's great. Thank you so much, Roz. We can probably take one or two questions, and then we'll move to the next presenter. Does anyone have a question? If you do, you can type it into the box, or you can raise your hand if that's an option here. Okay, well, feel free to type it into the box if something does come up. And in the meantime, let's switch over. Thank you again, Roz.
No worries. I will just say quick as well that Lee Green is a wealth of knowledge on incorporating the farm into the school curriculum. She's the culinary arts instructor here at DT and has been a real champion for how to incorporate gardening into the classroom. So I know she only was able to be there for literally 20 seconds, but also if anybody is looking for resources or insight on that front, she'd be happy to share.
Awesome, thank you.
I just had one quick question. My name is Addie. I live in Kamloops. I'm the community animator for the Kamloops area, and we're looking at, I guess we're all kind of running into the problem that the school gardens just aren't really working, that the kids leave, so we're looking at more of a perennial-based permaculture kind of inspired, so having more fruit trees and, rhubarb and strawberries and kind of just snacky things. maybe you have like a general comment. Like I love that that the school doesn't have to take care of the garden, and that's what was a problem. So the gardens that we did start, they look terrible now because that teacher left, and you know it always falls on one teacher. So I'm going to look into fresh roots a bit more. I don't think we really have anything like that up here in Kamloops, but just kind of maybe you can touch on some key things when you have a garden to keep that sustainability going.
Yeah, lots to be said on that front, and I think Nikoo might even touch on bits of that in what she's talking about as well. I'll just say quick, like for fresh roots, that it's super valuable to be able to find multiple champions of the garden. So that might be a teacher, it might be some parents, it can be getting a group of students together that are willing to volunteer after school, or finding a bit of funding to be able to hire somebody that can be there even once or twice a week for a couple hours. That was what Lee was doing here at DT before Fresh Roots came along. Was she was actually hiring somebody for about 2 hours a week to help oversee the Carrot Club and look after the student garden space. And that's not as much of a, you know, obviously the operating budget of what we're doing is higher than that, but that's a fairly small kind of grant activity that could then help there be that sustainability component. But certainly finding ways for there to be volunteers on a regular basis, as well as student groups meeting on a regular basis to help look after the garden. And then finding ways for them to actually be able to eat and use what they're growing so that they see a value in investing their time in it.
Great, thank you, Roz. I'm going to ask you to unshare your screen so that Nikoo can share hers, and we'll pass on the torch. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Nikoo Boroumand. I'm the School Gardens Program Coordinator with SPEC, Society Promoting Environmental Conservation. They've been running a school gardens program in Vancouver since 2008. I guess I'll start sharing my slideshow here. I will, if I don't get back to that question that was just asked, just remind me. I have some ideas about that. Share screen. That's what I want to share. Are you able to see my slideshow? Hello?
No, we can't see anything right now. Or I can't anyways.
Oh, okay. Share screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, how about now?
Looks good.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so we're you can see my slideshow, right?
Yes.
Let me know if anything's ever on. Okay, so the SPEC School Gardens program since 2008. It's different than Fresh Roots in that we've worked with 14 schools over the past few years. Right this year we're working with 10, and our goal is to help the schools get school garden programs in place that are sustainable. So it's by no means the size of farm size at all. We have our smallest garden is 4 boxes, and then it goes all the way up to 12 boxes. This year there's going to be one that's 18. Personally, to make it sustainable, I'd say start small. That's the key, because there's always teachers coming and going, and new teachers catching on to how to run things. So a small school garden is not a bad thing. It is a good thing because you get to really put your energy into this one small space. Yeah.
So, can you talk about the box? How big are the boxes?
How big are the boxes? They are 2 feet. Wait, is that right? 4 feet by 8 feet. 4 feet by 8 feet
Okay,
on
so they're pretty good
average.
sizes. Okay.
Yeah, they're good sizes. Most of them are raised pretty high up, so the students can reach them pretty well. So what SPEC does is we come in, mostly we're working with elementary schools, and we help the schools integrate a program into their curriculum in the most manageable way possible, because we know realistically many teachers are not expert gardeners or farmers. Some are, which is awesome. So for them, it's the challenge of, okay, how do I turn my gardening skills into lesson plans for the students? But for others who are just interested in it, there's so much to do. There's so much to do in a garden. Even if you yourself are not a gardener, all you need to have is an open mind. And the new curriculum is just so wide open to have gardening education in there, farm to school stuff in there. So it's really encouraging that the new curriculum is so open to such a cool way to learn. So different ways that I've seen schools integrate farm to school is through school gardens. And for those, they would be the teachers doing it alone, or several teachers are working together to do it. The big thing about sustainability is getting a garden committee together. A garden committee would include teachers, interested students, parent volunteers are big, and ideally an outside organization such as SPEC or somebody coming out from the outside who's interested in getting involved. Elders from the community who are big gardeners, amazing. So anyone you can get, reaching out to different church groups, reaching out to different community groups, community centers that can comprise your garden committee is amazing for keeping it sustainable through the summer, keeping it watered through the summer, getting elders who know something about gardening to come into your class and talk with the students when you go out into the garden if you yourself are not super knowledgeable about gardening. That being said, there's still, even if you don't know much, there's so many ways to integrate it. So I've seen school gardens, mostly that's what we do. Cooking, like growing chefs and project chef do a lot of that. And a lot of teachers, I've seen a lot of teachers who just take on cooking on their own. And then composting. So SPEC does a lot of composting integration and lessons. This picture is from one school that is the teachers themselves, one teacher specifically that herself has taken to training the students to get all the green bins from around the school and take it to the compost bins on a daily basis. So you can imagine all the things they would get from that, responsibility, staying on their task, and all kinds of things they can get from that. This is my really high-tech art on how the school garden can really be linked to everything in the new curriculum. It really can. I'm going to concentrate on the science curriculum for the elementary schools in this presentation, but I'll give you a few ideas and resources for other ways to link them. So the big ideas for the new curriculum, new BC curriculum for the science area of learning, for every grade, you can really see how amazing gardening would be for any of these big ideas, like plants and animals have observable features. If you have a little garden with any kind of plants, you can, students really can't tell if you're a good gardener or not. So any kind of plants growing in there, you can use that to show students, oh, look, there's roots and leaves and stem, flower, seeds inside the fruit, all kinds of things. Daily and seasonal changes affect all living things. You can see that through the seasons, starting with a fall lesson. In the fall, right now we're doing a lot of things around seeds and preparing the garden for the winter. So how to take care of the soil. I'll give you some more ideas about seed lessons soon. So in every grade level, there is something to do in the new curriculum to do with living things, which, garden, living things. So it's an amazing place to integrate those big ideas. continuing on to grade 7, all kinds of ways in the new curriculum. If you're wondering where, I'll give you a link. I've compiled from the new BC curriculum, this science area learning. I compiled all the different competencies and what are they called? The big ideas that are related to gardening, and I'll give you the link to that. It's on the SPEC website now. There it is. Okay, so if you look through for grade K to grade 7, I've matched up gardening lessons with the different competencies that come in the science area of learning, as well as the core competencies. So if you just go to the SPEC website, and you can go to the School Gardens program. I wonder what's going to happen if I come out of the slideshow just to show you that. So you can just, on the SPEC website, there's the links, and you can open it, and there's, all right, now it's got the Zoom stuff. There we go. All right.
We can't see your.
Oh, you can't see.
We're just seeing the slides.
You're just seeing the slides. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, I'll just go back to the slides then. And can you see the slides now? Like you're still seeing them?
Yeah, we can see them now.
All right, great. Okay, on the SPEC website, there's also, we have a lesson book we came out with a couple of years ago. With 9 garden lessons that have full, all kinds of information background information for the teachers, and activities and posters and resources, all kinds of things. So that's free for anyone to use. It's on the SPEC website. It's all related to gardening. So seed saving, how seeds travel, composting, worms, designing a garden. So all kinds of things. You can check that out. There's also, on the new BC curriculum website, their sample lesson is actually a seed lesson, which I think is so awesome. So they have this instructional sample lesson on their curriculum.gov.bc.ca. I have the website there. And the sample is how to take the book A Seed is Sleepy, which most school libraries I've noticed has it. You can read the book to the students, and I think it's like K to grade 4. This teacher gives ideas of how to integrate it, and they do a dance. So it's actually a arts education kind of curriculum, and you can cross-link it to the science curriculum. So they dance like a seed. And actually, I like the idea so much that I've been doing it all fall with many students, many classes. Okay, at the end here, I just have some ideas of how to take gardening lessons. And I've heard from a lot of teachers over the years that they want to figure out how to assess students on the gardening activity so they can actually have something they're assessing, they're marking, they're integrating it into their marking scheme. So I just have some ideas here. I know this is recorded and it's going to be online, so you don't need to be jotting these down so quickly. They're all going to be online. But ways that you can assess students and get them projects to do. So as you're growing seedlings inside the classroom, let's say, you can measure the seedling as it grows every 2 days and chart it out. So this is at the easy end. Try different seeds, try germinating different seeds, like a pea seed, a bean, a radish, and see which one germinates quicker. Record how quickly each one germinates, things like that. And then here I have the more advanced stuff for the older grades. So something we did today. So getting the garden ready for the winter. We so these are boxes that have been used for many years, and the soil gets washed out a lot in the winter, so you got to really take care of it before the winter starts and all the rains wash out the soil. So one box, the students filled with leaves, covered the soil with leaves like a mulch. One box, they planted cover crops, so clover and buckwheat and such. And one box we left empty with no cover so that they can see what happens to the soil when there's nothing done to it. So for like a grade 6-7 class, this is a great experiment to design. And in the spring, you can see which soil is healthier. And one way you can test the health of soil is counting, like taking unit amount of soil and counting how many worms you see in the soil coming from the different boxes. And the worms will tell you which soil is healthier. And yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of fun. You can make it into a lot of cool activities. Start small, have an open mind. I've never had a student criticize anything that has gone wrong in the garden. They just get excited about everything. So even if you question your own abilities as a gardener, does not matter. The objective for me in all the schools that I run the program in is to get the kids into the garden, being okay with getting their hands into the soil, seeing what a seed looks like. This is like really easy stuff, right? It doesn't have to be running a farm in your schoolyard. This is like kids holding seeds for the first time, kids holding a worm in their hand for the first time, kids like harvesting their first beet or turnip ever from a garden. So it's really super simple stuff that just takes their educational experience to the next level. And I'll stop it there. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nikoo. That was really great. Both of those kind of went hand in hand. That was nice. Yeah, why don't we open it up to questions? And I'm not sure the way that you want to manage it. Maybe type it into the group chat or just speak it out loud if something comes up.
It's Kathy and Colin. I just wanted to thank Nikoo. That was really cool. I had no idea that you had those curriculum ideas. So now I found your website a favorite. I've shown it on Facebook already. Sent it off to my health promoting school coordinators. So thanks.
Great, awesome.
Does anyone else have anything they want to add? Does anyone have any ideas for integrating farm to school into curriculum in their own context?
I must admit, I was so excited by everything you were saying. I just emailed all of my teachers. This is so great because so many teachers are like, yeah, that's great, but I don't see how it fits in. And it's really frustrating that they don't see, but I totally get it, right? If they're not gardeners, they don't understand all the possibilities of
yeah, I mean,
check off everything they need to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's the easiest thing. It's just like the new curriculum, as long as you can get some access to some soil and some seeds and just an area in the schoolyard to work with. It can be taken so far and wide, and so much can be covered in the curriculum in it that it's amazing that we don't have it in all schools. And like I said, really small scale. I'd say it's starting small scale, and so much can be done with a small area.
Yeah, awesome. So our core competencies, like I'm not really familiar with the curriculum, but that seems like kind of the project-based hands-on learning piece. Is that right?
Core competencies is like overall like communication and it's not, I memorize them, but I'm sure there's teachers online that can explain this, but yeah, so there is communication, there's
creative thinking and just critical thinking.
Creative thinking, yeah. So it's like the overall stuff, like the, yeah. Basically, it's basically means like functioning as I see it as functioning as a human being. So like in the garden, you know, like before you like communicating, like, okay, what did we learn today? Or like in the, you know, now I start every garden lesson with, this is actually one thing I should mention is, some teachers get overwhelmed because a lot of teachers are used to managing a class within 4 walls, and you have different systems in place to manage kids inside a room. But if you've never been into the garden, you don't know what to expect and how to manage the kids in an outside environment. And most kids, as soon as you're in the schoolyard, they associate it with recess or lunchtime. So they just lose it. They're just like, woo, play in the playground. So you got to set out the boundaries before you go out. Like, okay, this is not recess. This is not lunchtime. This is still learning time. This is, we're in an inside classroom right now, and we're going to soon be in outside classroom. And in the outside classroom, you do the same things you do inside. If you have a question, you put up your hand, you stay with the class, you listen to the teacher. So really getting them prepared before they go out makes such a huge difference, so that once they're out, it's not overwhelming at that point. I don't even know if that was in line with what you were just asking, but I found it really important.
Good. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Roz, if you could speak to the things that you've done, or the things that are happening at David Thompson in terms of integrating the Fresh Roots programs into their curriculum.
Yeah, so that has taken a couple of different forms over the years. Originally, we were running a few more Pro-D events as one way of building the capacity of teachers. Did you bring one for me? Are you guys coming in here to eat? Oh, nice. Everyone's just finished up their veggie wraps. Yeah, so through a variety of Pro-Ds and whatnot. Now we are focusing a bit more on these field classes that I was mentioning earlier as a way to work with specific teachers that might be interested in bringing their class out to the garden with whatever subject it is, but aren't necessarily totally clear on how they themselves can make that happen. One of the things that we recognize is that teachers really want the farm to be there, but still also have that feeling of a barrier, especially at the high school level, of needing to meet so many objectives that it can feel challenging to figure out how to meet those objectives through the farm, and they don't want to be losing time on that, and they want to make sure it's very relevant to their curriculum. But there are definitely ways for that to happen. And so with these field classes, we're able to be that link and help make those connections for them. And there's been some really cool work that's come out of that. And one of the highlights for me last year was students testing our spinach nutritional content versus spinach in the grocery store, and actually finding that our spinach had a higher nutritional content. And that, for me, was a huge example of the really tangible impacts of what they're actually studying, and a way that teachers were able to meet a lot of those more rigorous science objectives through the farm. But on top of that, we are looking longer term at how the youth empowerment work and the work of youth actually spending time farming and cooking and all the different food literacy pieces can actually become a course in the long term, so that students are not just getting work experience credit or volunteer hours, but are actually being recognized as a contribution towards their graduation.
Interesting. Nikoo, are the SPEC resources you have on your website, are they mainly elementary school level, or do you have any high school resources?
Yeah, they're all elementary level. Yeah.
Well, it's a perfect partnership then between you and Fresh Roots. Awesome. If no one has, I'll give a chance. Does anyone have any other further questions before we wrap this up?
I was just thinking in terms of garden design, because I think we're kind of in a cool spot right now that some of the schools don't have gardens yet. Are there any design components that you guys recommend? Like having, like we want to have seating areas and stuff, right? So that outdoor classroom piece is very literal and the principal can see it and, you know, people can kind of get behind it. But is there anything else that's, you know, that you've come up with now that's important?
I can give one idea is I see some schools, they get their gardens in and they don't have a compost anywhere, like they don't have a compost built and they don't have they haven't built it into their budget to get a compost bin for years, and that is not a comprehensive garden. I find those ones are like there's a broken link in there for the students and they don't see the whole cycle. So budgeting wise, designing a compost in there for sure. That's one thing that comes to mind.
I'd also add in that as part of that quarter-acre space, we made sure that there were still some grassy circles and room for picnic benches, so that it encouraged people to actually want to spend time in the garden and it didn't just feel like this production space. And we, in one corner, got a bunch of logs and set them up as benches and have a chalkboard out there. So again, that idea of that literal outdoor classroom, so that even if teachers don't want to do anything to do with the garden itself, they can just have their kids outside, because as we're all learning, being outside itself is actually some of the most powerful part of what we're doing in terms of getting kids outside and gardening. So, and all the impacts that has for improved learning and attention and engagement.
I just thought of something. Can I note something that I was wanting to say before?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. It was after this question. Yeah, I mean, so I think it can be a little overwhelming to see the high production that happens in a system like Fresh Roots. They're awesome. They're so amazing, but they produce a lot, and that's their concentration is on production. But for a teacher or a few teachers at a school that are trying to run this without a farm manager, which Fresh Roots has a farm manager, it could be really overwhelming to see the kind of production that comes out of that. And I just want to say production should not be a goal for a small scale school garden. It's never been a goal in any of the programs I've done. The goal is more about getting the kids even seeing what it looks like when food is grown, what it looks like when a plant is grown. And that like 1 or 2 or 3 beets or turnips that they pull out of the soil is like the world to them. So I've never found that production does anything to add to the experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there any, just going on what you said there, is there any more like really good crops that kids find rewarding that you found, or kind of generally?
Yeah, peas and strawberries they love. They build a total love for kale at some point. Carrots they love. I think the thing with the root crops is they're just so surprised to pull it out of the ground. They're not seeing it develop as it's happening, so it gets really exciting for them. I'd say stuff that, I mean, anything like cucumbers and tomatoes and zucchini, that stuff is going to take a full long season to grow, and they're not going to see it before they go off for the summer. So things, other things like lettuce, kale, like any leafy greens or root vegetables or peas are the ones they're going to see before they go off for summer. So any short season crops.
Okay.
I think that's a good point, Nikoo, is to recognize that it's not always about production. You know, the farm to school movement has multiple pillars to it, so it's not just about procuring healthy local foods, it's also about the hands-on experiential learning opportunities that foster food literacy. So that is what you're doing, and connecting school with community, and that's just as important as the food itself. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, if anybody still had any questions from the connecting curriculum to secondary school part, Lee is back from facilitating the veggie wraps. So if anyone has any further questions about that, she's here to share. And I would also really support what Nikoo's saying about the value of the learning over the intensity of production. I think that was what our focus was initially, and we're also recognizing that there's a lot that can be fostered through a greater diversity in planting and choosing things that might not yield high value or high production, but that can be really rich for learning. So, yeah.
And in my case, just very briefly, we've got a new draft curriculum for the cafeteria. So we're just starting to implement that, trying it this year. And a lot of the big ideas really work well with the garden. So the obvious collaboration too with First Nations ingredients and growing those kind of items too also works. So I'm definitely trying to use our quarter-acre garden in the curriculum, taking students out for just basic herb tasting as a start. So generally, it's a real asset to have within the school. And the students that I have want to be chefs, so it's really teaching them about where their food comes from and appreciating it and finding purveyors and providers of food that do it with integrity and enhance whatever they're going to do in their career. So,
Lee, I'm wondering, is that available publicly, what you've created there, that resource?
Yes. I mean, so far I'm just using the Ministry of Education's website, which has all of the information on the new draft curriculum. So that's posted about a month ago, so it's quite new.
Right.
And Rosalind and Nikoo, it's Kathy and Kelowna. I'm trying to find the school garden curriculum manual on the SPEC website, and I can't find it. Could you maybe send out a direct link or show it online? Because I tried to get screenshots of a lot of your slides, but I know I didn't get them all in. Also, I can share it with
Okay, Sam, do we have a minute to?
Yes, it's 4:47, but we can keep going just for a couple minutes, and then we'll wrap up. And once we're done this.
Okay, on the SPEC website, on the top, there's the bar with the different options, and it says campaigns.
Oh, okay.
And under campaigns, if you go to
food and environment,
and then school gardens program.
Great. Good.
And the link for the curriculum is in the school gardens program.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, this has been really valuable, I think, and thank you again to Roz and to Lee and to Nikoo for sharing your knowledge and your passion for getting healthy local food into the minds and bellies of Vancouver area students and getting them out into the garden to have our hands in the soil. Wow.
Reading.
Oh, it's great, Lee. Pass one over. So I just wanted to mention that these network meetings are happening monthly, so please tune in again in November for another discussion about farm to school. The topic is to be determined, so if you're keen to share your farm to school story, just send me an email at vancouverregion@farmtoschoolbc.ca. Tomorrow, if you're interested in growing microgreens in your school, you can check out the Kamloops Regional Hub Network meeting that's happening online tomorrow. So it's the same time, same place. You can register on our website, farmtoschoolbc.ca. And thank you very much, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.